tarot cards are often the first step and basis for a seeker of metaphysical knowledge, like you, to discover your forever path. That could be astrology, numerology, healing arts, or any other spiritual interest you discover along the way. Elaine Ireland is not only a teacher of tarot, she is a mentor who supports you and will be there for you. Visit www.ElaineIrelandTarotMaster.com now and discover how Elaine's mentoring, tarot card and psychic readings, tarot card classes, and more help you to grow into the true being you are meant to be. Welcome to Conversations with the Ancients, where you're about to discover a whole different world than the one that, up until now, you've believed you're familiar with. World-renowned metaphysicist, practicing psychic, and tarot teacher Elaine Ireland invites you on a journey where you'll hear voices from the past, interviews with some of the greatest metaphysicians you've never heard of, because in their time, they needed to move with stealth. You'll also meet today's spirit mediums, healers, and others who will show you a side of the paranormal you've never seen before. Be sure you visit our website at conversationswiththeancients.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, hear the words of metaphysicians who blazed the trail. You're not in jail, thanks to them.
Everybody, this is Elaine Ireland with Conversations with the Ancients. I'm here today with Andrew Witt. I'm excited for Andrew to share his methods of, first of all, recognizing your spiritual guides and then learning how to work with them. He has over 20 years of experience, so he has a lot to teach us today. Welcome to Conversations with the Ancients, Andrew. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, well, we tried this once before and had to reschedule. So, see, folks, we're human. We run over tricks too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Your business card says career, relationships, health, loved ones, lost, guidance from spirit. Over 20 years of metaphysical experience, clairvoyant, clairaudient. Okay, folks of you out there that don't know what the clair means, that means listening. The clairvoyant is the psychic part. He's also a medium that communicates with the deceased, which is important.
Yep.
Right now, you're in Central Texas. I don't like to tell people exactly where people live, but if you want to share that location, you're welcome to do that. It's up to you.
Oh, that's all right. I'm just outside of Austin, Texas. I live in a town out there to the east called Bastrop. That's right now.
We're country. And we're both are country.
Yeah, I got to get out of the.
Yep. The challenge of working, we're going to talk about the challenge, first of all, of recognizing, and then working with, two entirely different things, with your guides, and how he learned to do it. Maybe he'll tell us what books he read and some of his mentors. Okay, so now we're going to start with who and what are guides. Who and what are guides?
Who and what are guides? Okay, so guides are spiritual entities. Okay, they live. Guides exist in a higher dimension. It's the same dimension that we come from before we incarnate into physical bodies. Okay, and guides, each one of us, when we incarnate, before we incarnate, we go through a process whereby there's a lot of decision making that goes on. Spoiler alert! There's going to be a spoiler alert here for some folks, but there's a lot of decision making that takes place in the selection of a guide. Generally, our guides are someone that is usually a very good friend of ours. Okay, they high vibrational. They tend to be a high vibrational entity, and they're here to be in service to us. They are here to assist us during our physical incarnation on Earth, from the time we incarnate to the time we leave. Very often, they're one of the first people that we will see when we cross over. Okay, the process by which we're assigned a guide it is not a happenstance thing. It's actually a process that takes place where there's a lot of decision making that goes on. And as a soul, when we come in here to incarnate into the physical realm, the soul is choosing the right conditions, the right the right conditions they're going to find themselves living in, family, parents. So yes, we do choose our family. We do choose the country we're going to grow up in. We do choose these things. And the whole idea is that we're doing, the soul is choosing this environment so that it can experience what it wants or needs to experience. Okay. And that's going to help its growth. Okay. And souls come here to experience things, but also to do things. And so, the soul is choosing the best environment, the best family, the best situation to help assist it in its journey. And so part of that process is we choose our spirit guides, and these are spiritual entities. They're not in the physical, and they're here to assist us. That's who they are. Okay. And it's a symbiotic relationship. So when we're incarnated, as we grow in our spiritual awareness, so do they. Okay. So it's a symbiotic relationship. And this removes the whole paradigm of, well, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to ask them. No, they're there to assist you. Okay. And this is a dynamic relationship, and it's a relationship that fosters growth and awareness on both sides, both for your guide as well as for yourself. So that's who they are. Okay. And they're of the light. Okay. People ask if there are good guides and there are bad guides. Well, there's not really bad guides. What it is, there's a lot of stuff out there. Okay. And just stuff that's not of the light, that's not, that isn't there necessarily, to assist us or to help us. Okay. And so we need to differentiate that when we're communicating with our guides, but that's further on. Okay. But that's who essentially our guides are. And they're here to assist us. And this is something that's been going on since we've been incarnating on the planet. So.
Can they do something to keep us alive if it's not time for us to go?
They can, it's a free will paradigm. Okay. And so the understanding is, for the person, that is incarnated, the human, it's a free will paradigm. And, as a soul coming in and living the life, you have the freedom to make your choices. Okay. And part of making those choices is also experiencing the consequences of those decisions and those choices and or actions. So what that means is that sometimes, in a case where a soul does or puts themselves into a situation that would preclude their time, in their time here, earlier, then what happens is, in very limited time situations, they can intervene, but for the most part, they can't. They can't intervene.
So I was taught that we all have destiny stops.
Yep.
Yes, we have free will. Not arguing about that at all. We have free will. How we get something done is sometimes not as important as the outcome, but sometimes we're supposed to get to an outcome. And that becomes a destiny stop. So nothing is supposed to interfere with it. And guides know that. It's like they've given a checklist and said, okay, in 2022, when this happens, you just stay out of it, bud. Is that what can happen?
Yes, for the most part. Okay. Like I said, under very limited situations can they actually intervene. Now, here's the thing. If you ask them to, they can.
They cannot.
They can. Okay. They can intervene if you give them permission to. Okay. Remember, it's your journey. So, in a situation, if I find myself in a situation that's dangerous, but I ask assistance for my guides, they can intervene, and they will intervene. Okay. But if I don't ask, I don't inquire for that, very rare situations where they can actually, very rare. Okay. And most of the time they don't. Okay. Generally, when they do intervene without permission, it's something where it's going to cut your life purpose short, and you're there for a specific reason. We're all here for specific reasons, but that's a decision at higher levels. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but generally they don't intervene unless you ask.
And even if you ask, they may not be allowed to.
No, they're allowed to if you ask.
Okay.
If you give them permission, they are allowed to, and they will go to town. Yes. And so that's interesting because like when I work with my guides, I have a constant rapport with them, and I it's interesting. I have requests, okay, and I say, well, if you see anything that's coming my way that I need to know that would be detrimental to me or my growth, let me know. Okay, you have my permission to let me know, intervene, do anything so it has a positive outcome for me, and I tell them that, and I just trust, and they always I trust them, and they make those, I trust their decisions, and if they intervene, they'll tell me to say, hey, we don't want you going down this way because there's gonna be a traffic accident up the road or something like that, and they'll let me know, and sure enough, I'm driving on the road, I go, wow, that's a wreck, and I pass it. I'll go around it, yes, and I've had that happen to me many times, so yes.
Okay, I want to back up a minute. You
Sure.
used the word who, what, our guides, and the word friend slipped in there.
Absolutely.
Are you saying that they have been a living, breathing being that has been your friend, or are you saying they're becoming a friend?
Very often, that they're both. That's very good. All guides, pretty much all guides that I know of, all guides that are here to assist have had a human or a number of human experiences. So they intrinsically understand the challenges of being human. See what I'm saying?
Okay. There's a book by Jane Roberts. A series of books by Jane Roberts. I don't know if you've read her work or not. She wrote a trilogy called Oversoul 7. And what you're saying kind of says the same thing. So I want the public to know that series of books by Jane Roberts, who channeled Seth, S-E-T-H.
Yes.
And folks, if you're going to read those books, please read them in order or you will be so lost. She was a professional literature. Yeah, she was a professional children's writer. And Seth came in and became embodied. So he occupied her, or his energy occupied her system as she was channeling him. I mean, you could hear the bones cracking and he proved his point. But he instructed her to write a trilogy called Oversoul 7. And there are 3 or 4 books. You can read one in a very short period of time. But what Andrew was just talking about being in body, Oversoul 7 had been in body, and he was being trained to be a guide. And he could split. Seth also introduced the idea of all things happening, all time happening at the same time. So he could go to present, past, and future, and he was assigned a group of people that would stay together, that would repeat friendships, family, that sort of thing, all the way back to the Druid age, and maybe even beyond. He could also be as tiny as a speck of sand, or he could be as big as Mars. So, and he was intended to be a soul. So he learned from the living, breathing beings, and he also taught and protected, sort of, but because he was in training, there wasn't a whole lot he could do other than absorb. But they actually were training him to be a guide. And then, of course, he had this voice over here that instructed him. So what you're saying is right on track with what others can learn from books like Oversoul 7. You can get them on Amazon in the same little trilogy package. They're easy. But the Seth books are very complicated.
I've heard of them, and they're excellent. Yeah. And they do cover and discuss a lot of the intricacies of the guide relationship and the challenges that guides have. But yeah, so this, it's not a happenstance thing. Okay, being assigned a guide is not a happenstance thing. There's a lot to go that goes into it. Your soul is in agreement with that being that is to be your guide. Now, I was referring to, and I want to eliminate some confusion. Like my guide, his name is John, and me and John go way back. We've been friends for a long time. Okay, and he has a ruthless sense of humor, and every chance he gets, he gives me a hard time. Okay, but that's our relationship. Okay, but he's a higher functioning guide. Okay, and I'm very blessed to have him, and he's done a very good job. He's kept me safe because I've personally been in some very dangerous situations, and I've walked out without a scratch. Okay, so guides can do that. Guides can assist you in many areas of your life. Pretty much in any area of your life. If you got a question, So yes, they're trained. They are, and very oftentimes, but when that's what I was referring to, is on the spirit side, they're one of your friends. You know them, okay, and and like I said, it's a symbiotic relationship in that as you grow, they grow, okay, and so.
Do you think that we come in with just when our spirits are sparked, keeping that as a beginning, because there has to be a beginning of everything,
Sure.
and perhaps an ending? But I know of very, very few stories of spirits just being put in cold storage or eliminated for whatever reason. But that's another story for another day. But
Sure.
our spirits are sparked.
Mhm.
Are we given a guide that will continue through all our team, through all of our lives? And then my
Oh, I
experience
see what
has
you're saying. So,
I've got 3 that have been with me for, I know, since I was sparked. But there's a leader. Her name is, well, I call her she, because she's always around. But there are other two guides that are with me too. But over my lifetime, I've had others in and out, in and
sure.
out. And that's what reminded me of Oversoul 7. When I read that book, I went, holy crap, I've gone through that. Yeah, I've met temporary guides,
Mhm.
but I also knew that that I had a purpose in their appearance with me. Do you look at it that way too? You have a certain one that comes with you as you're sparked. You're never left out there floating by yourself.
Well, that's interesting that you said that because, I do know that sometimes you may have a guide for a lifetime, okay, like for this incarnation, and then you rotate back to spirit, and then and it's a decision between you and the guide as to whether or not you want to continue that process. That is, if you're going to reincarnate right away, because when you're not reincarnated, when you're not in a body, you're not incarnated in a body, you might then not need the services of a guide at that time. So it's decisional between you and the guide and what's going on. So it's not it's a fluid situation, okay? But whenever you are incarnated into a human body, you do have a guide. And here's the thing, and I see where you're going with this. You may not have the same guide. Like, say, in my past life, I was a farmer or something like that. In my past life, did I have the same guides? Not necessarily. I might have, I might not have. That's a decision between me and my guide. See what I'm saying? In this life, I started with 1 and now I have 8. Okay. Now, just like you, I've had a couple of guys who come in and work with me and then step out. So it just depends. It depends on your growth, what your soul is doing, the requirements of your soul. This is higher level stuff that takes place, decision making. But the whole idea is to support you completely during your incarnation in physical form. That's the whole aspect.
There's a purpose for every guide that we have, I
Yeah.
believe. And
Mhm.
there's a purpose for us for that guide. One of my guides, many, many years ago, I was in a very emotional situation and I needed a backbone. I kind of said that in meditation one day. What I need is a new backbone. And I was kind of joking. But a couple of weeks later, I had reason to do some guidance work. Anyway, all of a sudden, I was coming out of not meditation, but a trance work for a family. And they told me this later. I couldn't smell it until much later, but a horrible, horrible smelling energy. Didn't know where it was coming from. And finally I felt this prick on my chest. I still have a freckle there. And there stood about a 3 or 4 inch Genghis Khan looking character. He was ticked. He did not want to be there. And he had been assigned to me because I needed a backbone. Well, a Genghis Khan character, they're mean, they're brutal, they don't think. You get the idea. Warrior, right?
Right. They were fierce for you.
Right. I'm a basket case. And he was so mad that he had been assigned to a woman. Oh, he was ticked. I didn't
Well,
understand why I got this stinky, smelly. I thought, my God, do I have to go to go to sleep without? Anyway, people around me were telling me what they felt and smelled. Came out of it completely. We worked together and it was very hard for about a year, but I got to see his progress. And by the time he came to me and said goodbye, I was in a much better place. He was almost smelling like violet. He was white draped and blonde haired. I mean, talk about an opposite energy. And he actually cried that he had to leave. But he said, I had to give you what I was, and you had to give me what you were capable of giving. And I asked him, will I ever see you again? And he said, I don't know. But if I am to be there for you, or I need you, I will ask. That's when you said something a while ago about the pre-agreement. That's what I immediately went back to, was him saying, I will ask. And I've never seen him again. Now, he may have come to me in dream form or meditation, and I didn't realize it was him, but I don't think so. I think if he had shown up, I would have known, regardless of what he looked like. I would have known.
Oh yeah. You know, it's an energetic resonance. You would pick him on. You like, I know that guy. I know that feeling.
That feeling.
I know that energy.
That smell.
I know that smell. That kind of sounds familiar. Yeah. I know who that guy is. And that's kind of how it works. And so it's an agreement between yourself. And like I said, it's a symbiotic relationship, and both of you grow together. So yes, we do help our guides. We do help our guides because there's things that we can accomplish and experience here in the physical realm that not so much they can experience over there, but it translates over. And so that's very important. And so it's a high level decision process because there's a lot that goes into it. And people, sometimes, and it's a shame because you look at this and we're talking about all the benefits of having a guide and how guides can impact us and how we can impact our guides. And then you got guides that, and I tell my clients and I joke about it, but it's kind of in a way true, is like, if smoking, drinking, gambling, and throwing dice was allowed in heaven, there'd be a lot of guides doing it because their charges, the people, I call them the charges, the ones that are incarnated, that have these guides have no idea they exist, and they never ask for their help, and they're immune. They're totally and absolutely not tuned into this, and they're missing out on one of the biggest tools that's available in their lives for them to change their lives, and they're completely and absolutely disengaged from it. And so I joke about it. I said, if there was a staircase in heaven and smoking and drinking and playing craps and throwing dice was allowed, there'd be a lot of guides over there because they have nothing else to do. They sit around. But regardless is if they're called upon or not from the person they're supporting, I'm going to call them the charge. If their charges call on them, okay, the person who's incarnated is who I'm going to call the charge, regardless of their charges incarnating them, calling them or not, they still are there 24/7, 25/8, 366. They're there. Okay.
How does somebody recognize a guide? And why are people, do you think, afraid of that energy when they do recognize their guide? That thing.
Well, okay, we're not going to even go into the religious construct. I'm not going to even go there. Organized religion. That's a horse of a different view, and we're not going to go there. Okay, so let's just go with guides. So, how do we recognize them? Okay, well, all guides, when we incarnate and we first start to learn to work with our guides, all guides communicate to us through feeling. Okay. And it's the human being the human being is the one that picked up on this, and we've all experienced it. I'm going to give you some examples. Like let's say that you go, you're invited to a social function. You go and you meet some people and you're like, man, I don't know. I got a bad feeling about this. Something's not right with these folks, or there's something that doesn't feel right. And you get that feeling right there in your chest. Okay. In your body, they call it your gut feeling. Firefighters, police officers, managers, EMS workers, those folks, nurses and doctors, they develop this because they've listened to it. Okay. But it's highly developed in them, but they get that gut feeling like, man, something's not right. That's your guide saying, hey, pay attention. Okay. And they communicate through the power of feeling. So what you do is you go into that feeling. I use the terminology, go into that feeling, but that's where you go and you start engaging. Okay. And my story and how I did it, I probably did it in one of the strangest ways, but it worked great for me. Okay. And if you would have known me before I started my spiritual work, I'm a pretty cynical dude. Okay. And the way I work is, believing is seeing and everything else is noise. Okay. And that's just
I like that.
yeah, believing is good and everything else is noise. I'm a very evidential person. Okay. And so that being said, I would, and this goes back to my whole spiritual development. I grew up when I grew up, I went through some pretty challenging times with my family situation and all that. And it left me with a lot of stuff that I had to work through. Okay. As an adult, still, programming, things of that nature. And so I started going down that route. Okay. And I started going to a meditation class, and one of my mentors was teaching that meditation class. And I started going through that. And what helped me is I started meditating a lot and addressing, all these issues that were coming up. Doing that, working with spiritual, that got my energy up to the point where I was now sensitive enough and I was open enough to the whole possibility of working with guides. Now, the thing is when you talk to your guides, the way it works is it's almost like you can ask yourself a question. Now, if you were to ask yourself, in your mind, you go, Andrew or Elaine or Bob or Joe, whoever's listening, ask yourself a question and then just get quiet for a second and then listen to the answer. Okay. Now, what you sound like when you answer the question, but sometimes when you ask yourself a question, it will sound different. It sounds familiar, but the wording is different. Okay. That's your guides. Okay. That's what it sounds like. And it's very, very, the term I use when you first start doing this is it's a very, very fine distinction. Now, most people don't realize it. They're a lot more psychic intuitive than they give themselves credit for. A lot of that little psychobabble that goes on in your head as you go through your day, you're driving, you're thinking this and that. A lot of that, believe it or not, is psychobabble. We just are programmed not to think that that's what it is, and we dismiss it. Okay. And we put a judgment. That's just me rambling my head. That's a bunch of this and that. And I'm going crazy, whatever. But actually it's not. When you really a lot of it is not true. Some of it's from the brain. But a lot of that, when we ask ourselves questions and information we get, a lot of it is being fed in by our guides. We just don't know it yet. So what's the distinction? Well, like I said before, guides will communicate to you. So ask a question. You can ask a question, or you may find yourself in like I said, it can be a situational thing. So you just pick up on something, you see something, you observe something, and it doesn't resonate, and you get that feeling right there. Okay. That's your guides talking to you. Okay. Putting that there, letting you know that. Now, and I say, if you were to step into that and start asking questions, you will get answers. Okay. Now, how you get the answers can be a number of different ways. Guides use all kinds of methodology to get the answers to you. It can be a thought. It can be a song that comes on the radio. It can be something that you observe or see. It can be a number of different things. So when you ask the question and be quiet and just allow it to happen to you. Okay. Now, now let's go back. When we talk about direct communication with guides, okay, the way I did, I'll just explain the way I did it, and it'll make sense to you. What I did is I would ask the question and I get quiet and I just hear like a little voice sit there say, I ask, well, what do you think of this? And then I hear something and it was very non-judgmental. It was very peaceful. I felt like I was talking to myself, but I wouldn't say stuff like that. And that's when I noticed it. I was like, okay, that sounds familiar, but I wouldn't say stuff like that when someone asked me a question. And then I ask another question. And I asked another question, and I started developing this rapport. Well, once again, okay, I still was new, and I'm very, very cynical person. And at the time, I had a job where I drove an 18, okay, in Austin, Texas, hauling gasoline. Okay, that's what I did. And at the time, Austin now has a lot of toll roads and ways to make you get around easier. When I was there, none of that existed. And it was a miserable place to drive for a truck driver, because you're constantly shifting gears. Lots of traffic, lots of lights. And so I said, it sure would be nice if I could figure out how to put these lights in red or green before I got to them. So I wouldn't have to stop, I could come out. And then I said, hey, hey, voice. This is where I got smart. Hey, voice, next traffic light, red or green? And I get quiet. And I learned a few things. Number one, the first thing that comes to my head, whether I hear it, I see it, a little image in my head, like, almost like I'm making it up, a little image, or, I hear the word, or I see, the word spelled out, or whatever. Well, whichever way comes to me, when I first get it, that's your answer. Don't judge it. Don't edit it. That's your answer. And so I got to a point where I'd ask them, I said, come up to a light. I say green or red, and I hear green, and I slow down. I'm like, oh, okay. Then I slow down, and I zip through the light. It was green. And I did this. 50, 60, sometimes 70 times a night at work. And I did this for a year. And I got to the point, it's easy, it's repeatable, it's something that everyone, if you drive a car or even if you ride the bus, okay, if you're in traffic, you can do this. That's part of American life. We're in traffic, okay? Most people own cars or some kind of transportation or in cars. They're moving down the road. See what I'm saying? It's easy. It's repeatable. And I did this for a year. And I got to the point I could hit every traffic light. And it was great because I didn't realize that, of course, it's easier on my body because I've been shifting all these gears all the time. The other thing is I made better time. The other thing was I wasn't as stressed as much. And because I made better time, I made more money. Okay. And here I am just doing this. And I learned a couple of things. If I doubted it, if I started going, oh, well, you made that up. Okay. And no, it was really red. Okay. I get it wrong. See what I'm saying? Or it's green. No, it's supposed to be green. If I got in there after I heard my first little inkling of information, once I got that, if I engaged my brain and I doubted it or whatever, I would goof it up. Always goofed it up. Okay. And I got to the point where I learned that, hey, first thing you get, just be quiet and roll with it. And here's the thing, and this is very important. Why I'm mentioning this? Because part of the process of working with your guides is trusting. It's a process of trusting. Okay. And I use that now because now I'm a professional psychic. I have someone sit in front of me I've never seen before. They sit in front of me at my table. I know nothing about them. And they ask me to give them a reading. Hi, how you doing? I'm Andy. What's your name? Okay, I'm Andrew. And they say, oh, my name's Jack, John, Joe, whatever. And then I go ahead and I go to my guides and they give me the information I need to know to tell them. That's all I do. Okay. But once you have that connection, once you have that, you develop that connection to that level, you don't need anyone else to tell you anything. I mean, there are other people to help you out and assist you, but you're connected with spirit. And that's the key. Okay. It shifts your life in every aspect. Okay. Every aspect, your relationships, your work life, your financial life, your fun life. I mean, everything. It shifts everything. But that's what I did going back. So that's why I developed it. And I asked that voice every day. And so I was like, well, after about a year, I kind of got smart because once again, I'm a very cynical person. So, well, if the voice can answer traffic lights for 5 days a week for a year, I bet it can answer other questions. You think? And so I started asking other questions. And that's when I started developing my relationship with my guides. But it took me a long time to trust what I was getting because the first inkling is I'm making this up. Okay. I'm making this up. This is in my head. Well, yeah, it is in your head. Okay. But it's not you. Okay. And there's a fine line, a fine level of distinction. Now, the interesting thing is now, Elaine, when we look at time, now more than ever, more people are more sensitive and more aware to the small nuances of energy. And people that have talked with their guides or dealt with their guides, they know what I'm talking about. You yourself know. Okay. But to someone in the audience who's just figuring this out, it's a very small nuance and it may seem frustrating at first. So what it is have faith. You'll make the connection with your guides. They're there to serve you. They want you to have this connection and they want you to have a personal relationship. Because when you have a personal relationship with it, it makes things easy. Hey, John, what do you think of this? He tells me. It's that easy. You know?
You've used spirit and guide, and I have a question here. Little note, actually. Do you think there's a difference between spirit and guide? We intermingle, excuse me, audience, we intermingle those words a lot. Is there a difference between spirit and guides?
Well, that's an interesting question because it has layers to it. But the reality of it is all guides
because it has layers to it. Yes.
Yeah, it does. Now, the interesting thing is all guides are spirits.
Okay.
They're on the other side. So yes, that is a correct question. I mean, when you ask that question, yes. Okay. They're higher, they dimensionally, they exist in a higher dimension than what we are. We're in the third dimension right now, getting ready to go to the fourth and the fifth. But they're residing around the fourth, fifth, even higher than that, depending upon their energy. Okay. what they're being required to do, because we have, like I have 8 guides. I have some guides that are 5th dimension. I have some that are higher than that because they work with higher energies, which I sometimes go into when I'm doing my metaphysical work. So it depends, and guides have specialties, believe it or not, areas where they work. Okay. Yeah. So yes. So, but they are spirit. So when I say spirit, they're part of spirit, because remember, each one of us, even our guides, are part of God. Okay. And the way I like to talk in analogies. And one of the things I like to do when I talk with my clients, just imagine that God handed out a bunch of cameras to everybody. Okay. Video cameras. And he says, each one of these video cameras is my eye. And you get to walk around, and everything that this camera sees, okay, is what I see. Everything that it thinks, I hear and I feel. See what I'm saying? Well, God actually did that. You know that camera is? It's our own eyes. Okay? Because each one of us is a part of the Creator. Each one of us has a spark of the Creator. You yourself said it, the spark. Okay? Our guides, they're a spark of the Creator. So you have all these different fractals of parts of God out there experiencing and re-experiencing everything. And that is how God experiences him or herself repeatedly over and over again, and continues to expand. That's how it works. So each soul out there, each human being, each spirit out there is like a little window, a little camera of God out there, a little evidentiary camera going out there doing its thing. That's why I kind of explain it. And so, going back to your question, yes, God, our spirits, our guides' spirits, absolutely. Okay. And behind this physical body that we're in, when it dies and goes away, we're spirits too. We're just happen to be hanging out in the physical human body right now, having a physical experience, the incarnation. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I've had people ask me that. You've described it very much the way I do. But the other part of that is, I'll have people tell me, my grandmother visits me a lot. And I think, yeah, sometimes it's your grandmother, but most of the time it's not. It's an energy that has taken the grandmother form, so you won't be alarmed. And we'll listen to and sometimes I think that's a guide, and sometimes I think it's a visit from something else, a temporary guide. But that's confusing for a lot of people, because we as a community intermingle those two words quite often, yet they do have a slightly different purpose when they present themselves to us.
Absolutely. And the thing is, but when you really think about it, in most situations, and it's neat that you point out that nuance, but in my work, I'll be honest with you, I intermingle all the time, because we're all spirit. Okay. So, I mean, that's my get out of jail card on that one. But,
I brought it up because a lot of times podcasts like this are being listened to by people that are beginning to be afraid, be excited, being confused, and they read a book, they hear a podcast, and the word spirit and the word guide and the word grandma or whoever, who are these energies? So having a fellow professional explain the difference and the similarities, I think is really important.
Yes. Now, the thing is to understand that we are all, we're all, you see, everything is made up of energy. Okay. And and energy precedes the physical, but there's an energy aspect to even things that are physical. So, for example, thoughts are energy, and thoughts exist. If you look around, for example, in a room, or you in your house, and you look at all those items in your house, those, before they were turned into a physical, they were a thought. Okay. And everything is energy before it becomes a physical. Now, that being said, souls, okay, in the spirit world, there's lots of beings, okay, and there are different expressions of energy, okay, and you have a lot of different things out there. Souls, okay, guides are souls. They're advanced souls that help assist other souls. See what I'm saying? And so we're all playing different roles, and there's a hierarchy. There is a hierarchy to it. And the thing to understand is, like, for example, going back to guides are here to assist us. we are souls having a human experience. And that's why, going back to the beginning of our conversation, not anyone can be a guide. There's training that's involved, and that I understand most guides, that I know of, most guides have had a number of human experiences. So they understand, they are intrinsically aware of the challenges of being human. Okay. And so they've been there, the old expression, been there, done there, got the t-shirt. Yeah, but they've been there. Okay. So they get it. So when they're assisting their charges, they understand what their charges are dealing with. Okay. What it's like to be in a human body, what it's like to feel pain, what it's like to go through all these things as they assist. So yes. But going back to the concept of spirit, we all are spirit. Okay. However, in the human condition, in the human body, we have souls that are incarnated into a human body, okay, and they're having a physical experience, okay, and then we have other souls who are not in the human body, and those are our guides, and then there's a tier level based on the vibrational aspect of the energy, and we call them dimensions, and that souls exist on, okay, as well as other beings too. But that's kind of what it is. Does that answer your question in a way?
Yes. I want people to not be afraid of the word spirit or the word guide, or be confused about how they might fit in that person's journey.
Sure. Okay. Because the thing is to understand is that, and humans, when a soul incarnates into a human body, there's a process they call it dropping the veil. And once again, I like to talk in analogies, okay? And it makes understanding this process a lot easier. So here's the setup. Let's just say that we're in a drama class. All of us, there's 30 of us, and we're in a drama class. We're going to put on a play, okay? And we're going to have a villain. I'm going to be the villain. You're going to be, the lady I'm trying to save. Someone's going to be this. So everyone has their role. And we practice, and we practice, and we practice, and we practice. And finally, it's opening night. And the auditorium is packed full. The tickets are sold. People are munching on popcorn. They're dying to see us. And they're about to pull up the curtain. And they say, okay, roll call, let's go. And we're running up the stairs. And I run up there and we're getting ready to take our positions when the curtain lifts up. And then my drama teacher's over there, the guy that trained us and taught us for the last year, he says, okay, one last thing I'm going to do. When I wave this wand, as you go underneath it, you're going to forget who you really are. And the reason why is when you go on that stage, you're not going to know that you're Andy playing a role, or Andrew or Elaine playing a role of Jack or Bessie, whatever. You're going to think that you're just Jack or Bessie. You're not going to remember that you're Andrew, okay? And that way, it will be real to you, okay? That's what we're going to do. When he waves that wand, we go out there, and man, oh man, we play that, and we play like that we are those characters. See what I'm saying? Even though we're playing a role. That's the analogy I like to use, because that's the process. When a soul incarnates, they need to forget who they are so that they can go ahead and learn what it is that came here to learn and experience. And so there's trials and tribulations and all that. That's how we develop and grow. It's almost like if you walk into a test and you know all the answers, what's the point of taking the test? Right?
It's true. Yes.
What's the point of knowing this? He's like, oh, well, I know how this is going to end up anyways. Well, then, okay, let's have a sword fight. That'd be fun. You know what I'm saying? I mean, in other words, it doesn't carry the same level of experience. Okay, because we learn through experience that when we lose temporary lose identity of who we are, and we become that person, like in the analogy of the play that I was saying. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and so
there's a saying about Earth is the biggest stage in the universe.
Oh, is it ever? Is it ever? Is it ever? But the thing is it is. But then as you move into, and it's set up that way for a reason. And I didn't design it. I'm here just like everyone else. But and I do have my complaints about it from time to time. Everyone does. Okay. But I will say that it serves a function, and it serves a function because it allows God to experience his or herself repeatedly. Repeatedly, okay, through each of us, because each one of us is a part of God. So that's how that works. And so, and by us forgetting that we're part of God, we go out and we do this stuff as if you didn't know. See what I'm saying? And then it brings a level of realism to the experience. See what I'm saying? That's kind of how it works. Okay. I don't know if I'm articulating this properly, but that's the setup. And what happens is that our guides are here to assist us in that process. So it's an interesting thing, but it works. And the thing is as we develop and we grow spiritually and our vibration increases, it changes the dynamics between ourselves and our guides in that relationship. Because as you move higher in vibration, you now require different types of assistance with your guides. And that's why some of us have more guides than others. It's not that you're, and like, for example, I have 8, they come and go and they help me out as I, and you have yours. And I know other readers that have more than I do. So it just depends on what's required.
I can remember the 3 ever since I was a child. My panther has grown with me, but I've seen my panther change. I can remember the weight of the panther on my feet when my feet were cold as a kid. I was
nice.
4 or 5. I wasn't 5. Because we were in Italy when I was 5 years old, and it was before that, out at my grandmother's place in the country. But I remember because she is pencil thin, and her size is usually from the ceiling to the floor, wherever I am, usually to my my left vision corner, wherever that is. And the leprechaun, okay, let me back up. The energy of the leprechaun was always with me, but not stabilized in form. There was always this little puff over multiple colors, kind of like not a light, but a soft cloud, let's say.
Sure.
And when I was in my 30s, somewhere in there, he took shape in about a 4-foot leprechaun. I needed a sense of humor. Just like I needed a spine. Right. And I think that's why he took that shape. And he's never been anything else except that ever since he claimed it, which is fine. Now I can see him. But when I dream and he has messages for me, he's back to that puffy, multicolored, cloudy little thing that's maybe 6 or 7 inches across. That's it.
They shape it. They can change whatever they need to do. And
I've always thought it was interesting that I'm a Leo and I was given a panther image. I think that's interesting. I feel like has been with me since I was sparked. For some reason, I feel like
you go back a long time.
Yeah. And
he says, "I'm not going anywhere."
No, I love it. There's a lot of trust there. But she, like Oversoul 7, when I read in Oversoul 7, I thought, oh my God. When I read that he could be the size of a grain of sand, all the way to size of another planet, I thought, yeah, okay, I get that. That's validation. For me, it was validation because of she. But over the years, I've had those others come and go. And there have been many. And there have been guides that I had all sorts of compassion for. And I thought, God, how can I help them? Oh, geez. And then I've had the ones like the little Genghis Khan character that needed just as much as I needed, which was, I thought, a wonderful exchange.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't like the smell that went with it, but...
Well, you probably got them and just got through, going and fighting or something. It's like, getting a shower is not a priority.
No.
It was, So,
yeah.
But it's interesting because our guides, their energy, and they're, because they live at a higher dimension, there's a different set of rules, as far as existence that goes with that. And so because of, like you said, they can be as small as a grain of sand, that goes be as big as a planet. Okay. And they can change shape. They can do what they need to do. Okay. And that's just part of being a 5th dimension or higher being, that they can do that.
But I think what you said a while ago, I think that's interesting. So we're 3-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
Folks out there, there's a major shift going on. Planetary wise right now, and spiritually, this is a 9 years. So this is a completion and a new beginning. But people have been feeling it all of 24, I do believe. And there's a reason for that. But you said that our guides don't necessarily go with us, but we pick up another guide. So if I've had all these shifts and developments that I've gone through, but she's still with me. Is she going to stay with me? We don't know. Whether I move into the fourth, which we will always move into whatever dimension we're supposed to, and the fifth dimension. And when you said they sometimes, or they do stay behind, I went, no, I got to have my she and my panther.
Well, it's interesting you say that, but the reality of this is it's not so much the events going on. Well, so here's how it works. Your guides, staying with you, for example, as you evolve and grow and things like that, that's a decision between you and that guide, your soul and that guide. Okay. And it's a high level decision, but nonetheless it's a decision. Okay. And the thing is there are guides that stay around for many lifetimes, like in your case, yours. And then there are some guides that, may assist only in one incarnation. Sometimes you may only have a guide for part of your incarnation. It just depends. But regardless, they're still there. You're never alone. You're never alone. You're never alone.
Boy, I'm so glad you said that. That's a nice reminder. We are never alone.
Never alone. You're never alone. And God, no, you're never alone. God will not let that happen. You always have a guide. You always have a guide. Now, whether you listen to her or not, that's a horse of a different hue. But what I'm saying is you're never alone. Okay. And like I said, and you mentioned yourself, many of us have more than one. Okay. And they may have specialties. Okay. Like I said before, some of them, are better with different, working with different types of energies than others. They all have their different specialties. Okay. And they'll assist you as needed in your incarnation.
I was told a long time ago by a master that it's long gone. I'm sorry now, but he said, you come in with the whole tribe.
Oh yeah.
Come in with you. You come in with you, and you were assigned almost immediately. Your guides, your angels. You perhaps are allowed assistance from past life relationships, which is where he drew the line. Those are spirits. They're not guides. Guides are assigned to you for a purpose. Spirits may come and go. I asked him, but aren't they one and the same? They have everybody, all of that has to start someplace. And he said, on occasion. But it's like angels. Angels have never been in human form. They can take a human form, but temporarily. But it's like they're a holograph because they're so hot and so high level, they can't exist.
They've never been in physical form. They haven't been. No.
I get tickled when somebody says, Michael was at my end of my bed last night, and I'm going, and the house is still standing, in my head. But it's like a hologram. Hologram.
Yeah.
And yes, they can project and be in thousands of places at one time if they need to be. Spirits, I agree. Everything was in spirit form to begin with. Now, do they stay in spirit form, or they go back and forth? And when they become a guide, do they stay a guide? Or do they go, when they're not assigned to somebody, do they go play that poker game?
Well,
and
for example, like being a guide, usually when they're a guide, they're assigned to someone. Okay. Now, the thing is now if they're not with someone at the time, they have the training. They may assist others. For example, like one of my family members had a situation at her work, my sister. But she had a situation over there, and she was asking about it. And I said, well, you have a tool in your toolbox. I said, ask your guides for them to help you. And she goes, I didn't think of that. I said, ask them. Okay. Because she's waiting for you to say something. Okay. Because she can't do anything until you ask her. But if you ask her, she'll take off, and then she'll go to council. And that's exactly what she did. So she went to this council. So her guides, my sister's guides, went to this council. And before you know it, there's like 800 people involved in this. Okay. Because now we're talking to the guides of this person and that person and all these other different people. And it became a big to do. And they figured it out. And then she goes to work one day. She says, you're not going to believe it just happened. And she tells me all this stuff. And I'm like, really? She goes, I never thought it would work out this way. I said, bingo.
See, you just said something very important. You said she went to her guide. Her guides went to the council. And then you had all these other people involved and their guides.
Yeah,
And I tell
all the other people.
we're not on planet Earth by ourselves.
That's right.
We
That's
need
right.
help. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, because and our limitation, one of the issues that guides don't deal with, okay, that we deal with in the human incarnation is the ego.
Whoa.
Yeah. And the ego, if you look at all the problems on the planet, 99.998% of them are ego. Okay. They don't deal with that. So they go over and it's very manifest and say, hey, this is what we got going on. And they talk it out. They go to counsel. But here's the thing. And guides oftentimes will go to counsel before you even ask them because they have an inkling that you're going to ask them. See what I'm saying? So they check up. They do the okay. And I tell my guys all the time, I say, hey guys, and I say, if you see anything, and I'm very, that's my relationship with my guys. Say, you see anything, let me know. If you see something come my way or that's beneficial or something I need to know, I mean, you have my permission. Go do your thing. I mean, and enlighten me, and they do. Okay, and they chime in, and you may want to pay attention to this. Ooh, I noticed something. Maybe I should have said this a different way, or maybe I should have addressed this with the client differently. All kinds of stuff. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, they do that, and they go to these councils and see, and they work with, because we're not the only ones. You and me are not the only ones that have guides. Everyone has guides. Yeah. Okay, and so these guides work with one another because at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is cause everyone to have to evolve. For everything to work out that for everyone involved in the best way for everyone involved, that resonates with the highest good of all involved. That's what they're trying to do. That's the accomplishment they're shooting for. And there's give and take, and there's a lot goes on with it. And some of this stuff can go high level depending on what's going on. I mean, this is just a little situation that my sister had at her job. Imagine what happens on the national fronts. These leaders, okay, and people like that. They have guides too, okay? And so there's a lot to it. And the message is that our guides are here to serve us. And the thing is we just need to tap into that. That's a good toolbox. And once you have that, it literally shifts your life. It doesn't matter if you're a plumber, you're a politician, a lawyer, a truck driver, a police officer, a doctor, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Your title has nothing to do with it. You're a soul having a physical experience, and your guides are there to assist you. And in assisting you, it helps you to assist others. That's what it's about.
Angels are another form of guides, do you think?
Can be. Okay. I mean, they can assist as well. Absolutely. Okay. Why I'm mostly talking about angels do come and go. They come and go. Like you said, they've never had a physical incarnation, a human incarnation like you or I are having right now. Okay. They can come here, like you said, temporarily, but they haven't had a physical incarnation. Guides that I know of, most of them have had a physical incarnation, so they understand the challenges of being a human. Okay, and they're higher level souls. As I joke, I always joke around and say they're the guys that got the T-shirt, been there and got the T-shirt, but they are now mentoring others. They're mentoring us. What they're doing, they're mentors. Okay, mentoring us in our journey, and they're assigned to us from the time we're here to the time we pass. Okay. I know when I have an inkling that when my day comes and I pass, I'll be able to look at my buddy John right in the eye. Okay. He's my guide. And I'll be able to look at, I've seen him once and I'll be able to see him again. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm back, but, and they're here to assist us. And so the thing is for us to be able, the challenges working with our guides, it shifts our life. Okay. And it causes us to grow in ways that we never thought possible. It is a personal relationship. It's a spiritual relationship. Your relationship with your guides often mimics your relationship with God. Okay. And the reason why is because when you work with your guides, let's go talk about the communication that takes place between a charge and their guide. Number one, when a guide communicates to you, a couple of things that you need to know, because people say, like I had these about a year ago. I read for this girl. She comes to the fair. She sits down at my table. She goes, "Yeah, I was hanging out at the house with my friend." She pulls out this game and it's a Ouija board. And I just about fell over. Okay. And I'm like, no. Okay. I don't know who came up with that idea, but that guy needs to get on someone's list. Okay. Because and she says, yeah, we'll move the Ouija board and all this. They play with the Ouija. So let's talk about guides. So first of all, the communication that comes from guides, number one, it will never put you in a place of fear. These are so people ask, how do I know that I'm talking with my guides? Okay. Number one, the communication you get will never, ever put you in a place of fear. If it makes you fearful, it is not of the light. Now, there's stuff out there that will communicate with you, like the stuff in Ouija boards, that can do that. But your guides will never do that. Okay, number one, never put you in a place of fear. Number two, okay, it's never judgmental. Never judgmental. Doesn't matter, because I hate to say this, I have people come up to my table, sit down, and they've told me some of the most embarrassing stuff that they did. And I'm like, you want to know something? The only difference between you and the other guy in Siberia is, you guys don't know each other, but he did the same thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. In other words, when you look at what's going on the planet, pretty much all the human activity that goes on the planet is the same stuff. Is now we have technology, we can access it. So what my point is that it's all there. You know what I'm saying? It's just part of the human experience. So that being said, your guides know this. Your guides are not judgmental. They're never judgmental. Okay. Number three, they're very supportive. Okay. When they communicate with you, it's in a very supportive tone. Number four, okay, they respect your autonomy. That is, you can do this decision, you can do that decision. We recommend this because of this, this, and this. We don't recommend this because of this, this, and this. But at the end of the day, if you do this, this is what may happen to you, but it's your choice. Okay? You see what I'm saying? They give you both sides of the thing. They'll communicate with you. If you ask that information, you'll get it. Okay? They're non-judgmental. And the thing is they're there to support you. Okay? My guides, I can tell, now the thing is, there's a difference between putting you in fear and telling you something. Hey, listen, you need to pay attention. Now, your response is, if I have a response of fear, that's my response. But in their communication, they're not trying to place me in fear. Am I articulating that correctly?
Yes, I get it.
Okay, yeah. And so that's the big one. And that's why when I hear people playing, and I use the example of Ouija boards, the problem with that is you don't know who's on the other side of that. You have no filter.
That's true.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And when you play with that, just like anything else, like you drive down the road, you never know what you're going to see. Okay. Till you get there. Okay. You're driving on a trip. The same thing is you're just driving through a trip of the spiritual world and you don't know what you're going to see. And you don't know who's on the other end of that. But our guides will, like I said, they never put you in a place of fear. They're never judgmental. They're always loving and kind. They respect our autonomy. Okay. And they will never try to manipulate you. And that goes with the autonomy. Okay. And here's the thing. They're patient. Oh my God, are they patient? Okay. My guys have to be patient. Do you know how many times I asked them and I argued over red and green lights? I'm telling you, they're patient. Okay. Because I did that for a year. Okay. And then I would ask questions and I ask my guy questions. They say, no, son, it's this. And I say, and then I ask them, I'm not sure if I'm hearing you. Can you repeat that again? I've asked them as many as 25 times. No, son, it's this. I said this, and sometimes I don't get it. And I say, okay, John, I say, I'm not getting this. Can you show me in a way that I will clearly understand that it's coming from you? There's no disputing it. Please show me that. And he does. I'll hear it. Someone will say, how was this thinking? And they'll repeat the exact same thing I was thinking or saying. I've had all kinds of different ways, but you got to be open to and ask for it. But our guides will do that. Okay. And the thing is I say this in this communication because anything that doesn't meet those requirements, being what is it? Not placing you in fear, non-judgmental, always kinds, loving, support your time, all that. You need to understand that because anything else that comes through, if it doesn't meet those requirements, it's not of the light and it's not your guides. Dismiss it. Okay. And the thing is, and that's important because I've had people say, well, how do I know if it's my guides or not? Well, anything that comes from spirit is going to have those characteristics to the communication. And it's very important that people understand that.
People ask me all the time, clients or potential clients ask me all the time, like doing readings by phone. Is that just as good as reading face-to-face? And I'll tell people, well, I miss the face-to-face. I don't like to do things on Zoom because look up the cards, look down, look up. It's confusing to my brain. So looking at you and working with cards is one thing, or just doing plain psychic work. and they'll tell them, my guides are talking to your guides are talking to my guides. It doesn't matter. I've got you in my ear. How much closer can I get you? And then they want an explanation of my guides and their guides. And you've given beautiful explanations of that. They do talk to each other, not just us.
Oh my God.
But what bothers me is sometimes I'll get something and then they're not ready to hear that. Or they ask a question and I get an answer, and the answer, kind of like mind to mind, is something, and they'll say, but you can't tell them that. And my response to them quietly is, then why did you tell me that? Because I tell clients, you get what I get. It's not mine. I don't judge whether you need to know it or not. So when a guide says, but they're not ready to hear that, what am I supposed to do with it? Don't tell me what they don't need to know right now or can't handle.
It's interesting.
It just bugs me when they do that.
That's interesting that you say it, because that's a communication style that you have with your guides. My guides, my communication style is totally different. If they say it, when I ask something, for my client, they say it, I spit it out, and I have said some stuff that I would consider to be offensive. But and the thing is, and I've used some very powerful words before. And the thing is at that time, it's not for me to edit. It's not for me to edit. Now, let's just step back for a second. What we're talking about right now is as a psychic medium. So the way I work as a psychic medium, for those people out there, is I have my guides. Someone sits in front of me and I start giving them a reading, and I'm getting information from my guides. And all I'm doing is, as I get that information, it goes in, I hear it, and I spit it out. I don't edit it. I don't put a period in there. If there's cuss words in there, they're getting everything. They're getting all of it. That's my agreement. My job is not to edit. This is not about me. All I am is I am the speaker on the wall. That's all I am. Okay. Don't like the message, you need to go talk to the radio guy. Okay? Yeah.
That's why I don't understand why they tell me and then say, but they're not ready to hear that. Well, then don't tell me.
Well, I've never had that. I mean, I've never had my guy. Well, now this is interesting though. So what happens is they don't tell me, don't tell them that. What happens is they just won't tell me.
Yeah. Every now and then. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, I'm just like, geez, guys, filter yourself before you tell me anything.
Right. I don't know. I don't know, but I mean, and here's the thing. And this is what I want all the listeners out there to understand, is that this relationship I'm talking about, as you develop it, it's a process. It's almost like you become friends with the guy that you used to hate down the street. Now, I'm not saying that you hate your guys, but just imagine you had a viewpoint of this person that you maybe didn't like this guy, you didn't like the way he drove his car, the clothes he wore, but then you get to know him, and then you see behind that, you see the soul in there, and then you see the goodness. Then you start to actually like those aspects about that person you didn't like, and then you realize that dude's pretty cool. I like that, and you're like, hey man, I don't like the way you, I don't like the way you go fix your car up, but you want to know, or the music you listen to, whatever, but you like that person, and then you identify all it. See what I'm saying? And so it shifts your whole reality. Why am I saying this? Because just like you develop that relationship with the person down the street that you didn't know, you're developing your relationship with your guides, because they do have a personality. They do.
Yeah, they do.
And so I have, my little banter, my little isms and things. And, when he says certain things to you, I know what that means. He'll just pop it off like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. And people go, huh? And I say, oh, that's our thing. And I communicate. You have yours. But what I want the audience to understand is that each of you, when you connect with your guides, will develop your own relationship. And it's a personal relationship. Because let me tell you, when your guides talk to you, they just don't talk to you when you're awake and you're sitting at your desk. Okay? They talk to you whenever they want. Okay? And
they'll wake you up to make you understand something.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes if you're really busy, they'll jump in on you when you're in the shower or you're using the restroom, whenever they get a shot. Okay. But the neat thing is it's internal. It's in your head. Most of it's in your head. So you can kind of keep it to yourself, but sometimes they do. They will move in and get that message across whenever they feel they need to. Okay. And if it catches you while you're using the restroom or you're standing in the shower, or you're getting dressed, oh well. that comes across. Okay. Now, when of course you're sitting like I do metaphysical work, obviously I'm sitting at a table or whatever. See what I'm saying? But what my point is that that's a personal communication, and it happens all the time, and you will develop it, and it'll take on your own. Each person out there that develops this with their guides will have their own way of doing it. See what I'm saying? This is, each of us has our own little personalities. Each of us has our own little process, and that'll be your process. And it's a very personal process is what I'm trying to get across. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a thing of discovery, but it's also when you have that in your life, it is a very powerful and it's a very powerful source of inspiration and comfort knowing that you have that.
I like what you just said. Power and comfort.
Oh, yes. Because you can go in
different words.
Yep. Okay. Because you can go into a situation, and I've been in some very dangerous situations in my life, and I've been very fortunate, and I walked out without a scratch. Okay. I always thought in my younger years that I would make it past 30. Well, I did. Okay. And the thing is, when I was younger, I was in the military and stuff like that. I've been in some very dangerous situations, and I walked away without a scratch every time. And I didn't realize at the time, but I was smart enough when I was in these situations. I always remember myself. I'm like, oh God, please help me with this. I say, oh God, please help me with this. Get me out of this. Show me something. And it came through. And at the time I didn't realize it, but I was giving them permission to help, and they were able to help. And so all of us have this. All of us.
I feel like we are here for as long as we have work to do, regardless of what shape or condition we are in. Even if we're not in really good physical shape, but we can still talk and help, or even sometimes if that's limited, I think we are here as long as we can become of service.
Well, that's yes. And one of the highest callings, and this is personified by our relationship with our guides, because what are our guides doing? They're being of highest service to us, allowing us to carry it forward, be a higher service to others. And as we're a higher service to others, then we elevate ourselves. And then of course, so it matriculates on and on and on is what I'm getting at. It just builds upon itself. So yes, you're correct. And I think one of the most noblest callings of any is to be of service to others. Okay. And it's not what I'm getting out of it, because when you're truly at service for others, you'll understand that when you help others, you help yourself, because there's not a client that I read for or I help that I'll learn something from. So it goes both ways.
I've told people before, students in my tarot classes or years ago in psychic development, I'll say my best teachers are my clients.
Oh yeah. And the thing is, and I've been in situations where I've had to look at my guides and go, hey guys, I don't know what to do. Help me.
Yeah.
Okay. Help me. And then I go back and they just say, don't worry about it. We got this. Just pass off our message and you're good to go. We'll take care of the rest. Okay. All right.
You're not going to be retiring anytime soon, but there's a reason why the name of this podcast is Conversation with the Ancients. You will eventually be an ancient. And right now you're a very well-respected and known, established reader. But you haven't done 50 years yet, so not quite.
Yeah. No, I haven't. And here's the thing. I'll do this, and I've said it because this is my viewpoint on it. I started late in life with my psychic ability. I didn't really start doing this until I was in my 40s. Actually, no. My late 40s, early 50s is when I started getting the inkling I could do this. Okay.
Well, go ahead, finish.
Okay, but I've been working with metaphysically for years, working on myself and doing other things. But when I started actually going ahead and professionally, when I was giving readings, I just didn't know it at the time. I don't know what to call it. I was just doing my thing. Okay. And now my thing is giving readings. See what I'm saying? But professionally going out there and actually going to fairs and doing that type of thing, I started late in life. as opposed to someone that's been doing this since they were, in their early 20s. That's what I meant to say. I've been around this my whole life, but I haven't been engaged at it at that level. Like I know people that have been given reads since their early 20s.
Yeah.
And I haven't been doing that.
I want this podcast to be a way of the public knowing that psychics, healers, vendors, supporters are human. And we've broken barriers and allowed other people to work in the metaphysical community with not as much fear as the generations before us. And being able to talk about non-physical energies such as spirits is really a brave thing to do because, well, it just is. People can think you're crazy because you hear, you see, you smell, you think, whatever. So there's a lot of appreciation that goes with the generations that came before us, and we will eventually be the generation that came before somebody else. So I want, but yet we're human. We hurt. We marry, we divorce, we have babies, we lose money, we make money, we have to survive, but yet we still continue to do the work. We're not going to go away if we don't have to. And I know sometimes it's been more difficult in the last 20 to 30 years, particularly for men to find a place at the tables of psychic fairs or do things publicly. So I want to thank you for stepping out and doing that. I can remember doing fairs many, many, many years ago where there were no men unless they were book people or they were not readers, and they certainly weren't healers. They weren't massage people. They weren't Reiki people. They just weren't there. So thank you for being a pair of the shoulders that somebody will stand on in the future and say, well, Andrew Witt did it, and he did it up great. Thank you very much, Andrew. And he got out there and he talked about psychic stuff and spirits and guides, and he just kept doing it until it became a norm for the public. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. But I feel I'm really lucky because one of my mentors, a very well-established psychic named Joe Nichols.
Yeah, good old Joe.
Joe Nichols is one of my mentors, and he was doing it back in the day, when you guys started out.
Yeah.
And you can see the trajectory. I mean, just in the years that I've been doing, I've seen the trajectory to more towards openness. Now, why is it happening? Well, it's happening for a number of reasons. Number one, it's more in the public consciousness. Number two, our children that are coming in, they're more enlightened just by who they are. We hear the indigos, the crystals. These kids are not coming in, and a lot of these kids are already turned on. Some of us had to work really hard to develop our gifts. A lot of these kids, they just come on and they already have it. They just have it, and so they're integrating in. They're not growing up, and so because they're growing up, to them is just part of life. It's not something that's strange or anything. It's just there, and they have an acceptance of it, and that helps the bigger picture of mixing in with everything and developing a more open attitude towards things. Younger generations are bringing that in. And I feel really lucky because I remember as a kid, I was around metaphysics. My mom was a very metaphysical person, and she used to talk about it. And she'd be really quiet, careful who she talked to. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no. Now I could go down the road and I could say something to somebody, and there are people out there that aren't open to it. That's okay. But at the end of the day, chances are now, more than ever, I can go out there and talk to someone, and they'll be at least willing to listen, be open to it. Back then, you didn't even go there. You know what I'm saying? And so, there's been a shift, and it's interesting because I have some of my clients that come up to me. You look at these. I have some clients, big guys, men's men. And I had this one guy come in there, and you look at this guy and you're like, this guy looks like he should be a bouncer at a club, okay? Not at a metaphysical fair. He walked up to me and he's totally open to it. And I'm like, hey, cool. So there's a shift, and I'm just glad to be part of that shift. I never really thought about it from the standpoint of being a man or whatever. I mean, it just worked out that way. But I'm just glad to be part of it, and I'm just doing my part, okay? And the way I look at it is, some people look at it from different perspectives. My perspective is I have this gift. It was given to me. I utilize the gift to serve others. I work for God, People just pay me for my time. Okay. And if I go to a fair and I only see 3 people or 5 people that day because it's a really slow day or the weather's bad or something, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Okay. I really don't. What matters to me is that I showed up and I did my part. Okay. And then I saw the right people at the right time and I gave them the right message. That's what I needed to do. That was my part. Okay. And then I just go from there and I don't worry about it. And it's amazing because I don't worry about it. I just say, well, Spirit take care of all the other details. And trust me, Spirit has, and I'm doing just fine. Okay. And it works out. Okay. And that's the attitude that I have towards it. And like I said, I'm very grateful for the opportunity. And it's amazing because I meet a lot of guys and, they're questioning it. And I just tell them, say, hey, man, you're there. You're at the right place at the right time. Okay. There's no such thing as a coincidence. You're at the right place at the right time. Okay. Remember, and I say, I had to, be the buzzkill of the day, but you did sign up for this. You do know that, don't you? I love telling them that. And they're looking at me like seriously, I had to say that? Of course. Come on now. But that's what it's out. But it's true. And so I'm very grateful for it. And like I said, I will do my part as long as I can. Okay. And, I always tell my clients, I say, God hires, God fires, and God retires. Okay. Okay. And I do everything I can to not get fired. Okay. But, definitely, if he decides to retire me, that's my time. It is what it is. Okay. And, till then, I continue to work and I continue to do my thing. And here's the thing. I feel very blessed, because I do have this gift. I didn't think I have it. It took me a good 3 or 4 years to get comfortable with actually, saying, hey, I'm a psychic and I can do this. And it's not that I don't believe in myself. It's just to believe that I'm actually a psychic and I can do it, Right. And it's funny because this is something intrinsically, and this, like I talked to Joe Nichols and he told me, he goes, dude, I was a closet psychic for like 14 years, and he'll tell you that. And and I'm like, why is that? And he goes, well, I didn't think about it. I didn't realize that I could do this. You know what I'm saying? And part of it is just understanding and working with the gift. But the way it works is we're all giving gifts. As you come in and me incarnate, we're all giving gifts. It's up to us to work with those gifts. Those gifts have a responsibility, whether you're a singer, you're an athlete, whatever it is that your gifts are. And there are very talented people out there. It requires work, but at the same time, that is what you bring to society. That is your gift to your humanity. And my thing is whoever my humanity is, I'm not the lead singer of U2, so I don't stand in front of 100,000 people every night. That's not my humanity. My humanity is those who I see every day. And so if I can be in service to those who I see every day, I did my part. That's the way I look at it. And so you never know. I don't know. I doubt I'll be a singer of a band. Okay. I doubt I'll do that. I know I can't carry a tune in a bucket, but you never know. Maybe they need someone to do something else. I don't know. But seriously though, so my point is that's your humanity. And when you, I believe that when you step up to serve your humanity for the greater good, that's what I signed up to do. It took me a long time to realize it, but now that I realize it, that's what I signed up to do. And it's kind of funny now that I'm doing this work, I can't imagine my life without it.
Yeah, I can't either. Years ago, I've never not done this. Well, let me back that up. When I was having children, raising babies, I didn't do it. I had jobs. I've owned companies. I taught school. I've done a lot. Had a real estate career. I've done a lot, but I never did not do this. I made time to teach classes, do readings, something. Rarely was I not doing this. For some little bit, even if it was just a couple of readings a month, it's always been there. But there came a time now close to 8 or 9, maybe even 10 years ago, when Spirit and I talked for about 6 months. I was doing a great job with real estate. Money was great. I also had more readings and teaching classes. I mean, I was lucky if I got 4 hours of sleep a night. I'd look up and it was 3:00 and I'm what do you call it when you're sending, not texting, but sending a contract or something to somebody at 3:00 in the morning. And I'm thinking, I've got to get up at 7 or 6 or whatever. So Spirit said, you need to make a decision and stick with it. But whatever you give up, you cannot go back to. You can stay in real estate. We'll support you with your decision, but you cannot go back to being metaphysical. There was no decision. I could not imagine not having this work in my life, and not because I knew it would be like they would turn off the radio and I'd never be able to turn it back on again. And I just could not do that. So I left my real estate license hanging on a wall and I walked away. And this is where I am. And I worried about it because psychics, unless you're making books or doing something pretty much, we're lucky if we make the bills. Depending on this is or we're adding to our partner's way of life and or we've got another way of bringing an income. Things are slow, then things are fast. But I can't imagine not doing this. Everybody, you said it a while ago in a different way. Everybody's born with psychic ability. It's what they do with it and what the decision was before they ever came back. They can be very intuitive. You mentioned some careers a while ago, and I agree with you 100%. I would add to successful retail people.
Yep.
Because they have an instinct and a feeling about their client. And I knew teachers that could, the first day of school, look across 30 students and they would, and this is without reading their files, know instantly something about those children.
Where the troublemaker is.
Oh, absolutely. And that could be
right there.
Girl sitting in the back corner that had frilly little socks on and bows in her hair, but she'd end up being the biggest bully in the classroom.
Yep.
Or the little kid that came to school in the same clothes 4 or 5 days a week sometimes, and they were the number one student. And I knew some fabulously psychic teachers, wonderful people. We call ourselves professional psychics because we take on the responsibility of taking money or exchange of some sort for our gifts at our discretion. But 9 times out of 10, we know when somebody can't afford a reading and we give it. We share it. When I was younger, I would have people bring me fabric because I sewed. I had people bring me plants because they knew I was a plant lady. Art. Yeah. And that to me, when people want to give you something in exchange, we need to accept it. And I did my first reading when I was 17 for the mother of a friend with my mother's permission. And mother would not let me charge, which of course I knew, but the lady brought a beautiful dessert to the house for the family.
Bingo.
And she could not have let me do a reading for her without an exchange. But as professional psychics, we're different. We take on the responsibility of the exchange. And I ask people always, or I'll say, I hope you got exactly what you needed today, knowing that they did, but they may not know, but I was drawing attention, giving that to think about. They might not have gotten the answers they wanted, but they'd get information they needed. There's a difference.
Yeah. And that's a whole nother thing. But one thing I'll say, when this ties back into working with your guides, when you have that communication with your guides, you don't need to see a psychic.
No.
When you, and see, the thing is, and let me back, that doesn't mean I negate a psychic. What I'm saying is it's good because the psychic can give you confirmation and help you.
Big time.
And help you in your process, because it's a process. You don't just jump in there one day and say, oh, I mean, some people will be able to communicate with their guides like that. Okay. It all depends on you and your guides and your awareness and the situation. Everyone's different. Most people, it takes some time to practice it. But once you do it, once you have it, you have it. And that's why I tell people, I say, look, you develop this communication with your guides, you're there. And it's funny because I've had people sit there and say, so were you psychic when you were a kid and stuff like that? And I'm like, well, I had inklings of things, but there's this in the psychic area, being a psychic, that phenomenon, there's so many different ways of going about it. I know people who see visions every day. They hear things, and I've seen stuff like that too. But generally for me, it's been me communicating to my psychic. So I tell people, I was like, maybe I'm cheating. I don't know. But I have a communication with my guides and their spirit, and the information is good. It comes from the same place. Okay. And it's just as good. So what I tell people is, if you develop this ability to communicate with your guides, I mean, you want to talk about helping you in all areas of your life. It is truly and absolutely life shifting. The scene where, in the Matrix, Neo, red pill, blue pill. Hey, I kid you not. You go down this road, you'll take that pill. And once you go down there, it changes your life, because then it just opens up your levels of understanding. You're the same person, but then you're not, because you have a whole nother level of communication, of understanding, of access to information. You can see the bigger picture. For example, I often tell my clients, hey, in any situation, there's 4 points of view: your point of view, the other person's point of view, the way it really is, and the way the spirit sees it. Most people are lucky if they can see 2 points of view. If you can see all 4, if you can say 3, you're standing in high cognitive. If you can see 4, hey, you want to know something? That's mastery. You got it. But see, the thing is, our guides can help us to see that. That gives us an edge. And it's not about competition. It's about understanding and opportunity to grow, okay? And to develop, to be in service to others, the bigger things. And it's not all business. It's going to be fun. I have conversations about, what should I eat today? I'm not in the mood to do this. Can I do this? Can I, basic stuff. I go in there, I remember I was having a conversation about whether I was trying to buy a gift for my nephew. And I was like, should I get this one or should I get that one? I'm not playing with it. I don't care, So, but see what I'm saying? It's in all parts of my life. Okay. And anybody can have this as much as they want to. And the thing is you're in control of it to a certain extent. You are. There's certain areas of your life you want to discuss. That's okay. You don't have to. Okay. They respect your autonomy. And see, people think, oh my God, bro, if I let these guys into my head, they're going to rule my life. No. It's like having a conversation with your best friend. You are allowed to disagree. I remember when I was first going through my training to be a psychic, I trained with Joe Nichols. And so after working a year with my guides and learning how to communicate with them and all this, they said, I asked one of my other mentors, I sent them talking to a friend of mine, her name's Yanni. And I said, I would love to do what you do. People call you, you get to set your own schedule. They're happy to see you. And you have to sell them all this stuff. And she's like, well, Andy, you can do it. You got the gift. I'm like, you're kidding. She goes like, no. I said, can you teach me? That I can't. Okay. So she sends me to Joe Nichols. Okay. And I go to Joe Nichols, and I remember I signed up for one of his classes, and he, teaching how to do psychic work. And I remember I got into a very heavy argument with my guides in front of his office. This was bad. I'm over, and I'm envisioning an air, like I was in the military, so I'm envisioning a fighter airplane flying and a missile coming out from below and striking that airplane and it exploding, and the pilot doesn't get out, the big ball of fire and all this dramatics. And I'm sitting there thinking, going, yeah, that's going to be me when I go into that class, because I've never done this before. And my guides are like, no, you're going to do fine. We're here. We got your back. Well, that's easy for you to say. You're not in this truck sitting in front of that guy's office. And we're having this argument. And finally, a thought came into my mind. I'm arguing for like 10 minutes because I wanted it out. I didn't think I could do it. Okay. I'm like, no way. And I finally said, okay. And a thought came to my mind. I said, well, of all the times that you saved me and kept me from being, from getting killed, injured, or hurt, which has been many, and I walked away without a scratch, I'll take one for the team. And you know what they said? That's the spirit. Okay. And I'm like, easy for you to say. And I went in there and I had the attitude, whatever comes across, I'm just going to put it out. So guys, you might want to use the filter because I don't want to make any of these people mad. And there were other students in there, and Joe had a wonderful class, and I nailed it. I couldn't believe it. I nailed it. And I went back again. I nailed it again. And I took all his classes several times just to make sure that I could do it. And that started me down that road. And that was many years ago. But yeah, that's what it took. And so the thing is, and I was a skeptic too. So, But my point is that when you establish that communication with your guides, it opens up a whole new avenue of an access to information and possibilities in your life. Okay. Not only for yourself, but to assist others. Okay. It redefines your partnership with God. It redefines and confirms why you're here. Okay. It has all these aspects to it. And those are the things that, when you tell someone, well, what do I get out of talking with my guides? Well, that's what you get. Oh, and you get to do like psychic stuff, and people focus on the cool stuff. You're psychic and you can read for me and that kind of stuff. But in my personal life, there's so many other things that are there. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I wanted to illustrate to the audience, because when this happens, I mean, it's literally like, in the movie, The Matrix, people watch the movie The Matrix. It has a lot of metaphysical and spiritual undertones to it. And one of them was the red pill, blue pill thing, is once you go down that road, for example, I noticed that once I started doing metaphysical, it shifted who I hang around with, what kind of activities I engage myself in. Okay. What I talked about. Okay. Who I dated. Okay. I mean, it changed everything. And people say, well, that's no fun. Actually, it was more than fun, because it eliminated all those things in my life that didn't resonate with me. I didn't have to deal with that anymore. And I got to focus on the good stuff. See what I'm saying? And that's one of the benefits of it. I mean, that's just a personal benefit for me. And I'm a guy just like anyone else. Okay. Any other guy, I would think. And I would like to have good things in my life. You know what I'm saying? Like any other guy would, you know what I'm saying? So those are some of the benefits of it. And I want the audience to understand that, we talk about all these metaphysical aspects to it, and that comes with it. But the thing is, it will shift your life. It will shift your life like nothing else, There's not a drug that can replace it. There's nothing that can, that it is that powerful. Okay. And there's some powerful drugs out there. I hear about them all the time. I don't take them. Okay. I don't need any of that stuff. I don't resonate with any of that stuff, and here's the thing, when things get scary, like you look at some of the stuff that's going on in the world, and I see people that are really anxious about it. I just ask my guides, hey, what's going on? They say, don't worry about it. Excuse me? All that stuff that's going on the TV, don't worry about it. That's not for you to own. That's not for you to participate in. Don't worry about it. We'll let you know when you need to be worried. Okay. And they haven't told me anything to be worried about, so I'm not worried. And I live my life pretty peaceful. It's really interesting. Okay. But I do know that if there's something I need to know about, they'll tell me. Okay. And they have before. They say, hey, we don't want you driving on this road. There's going to be a wreck down there. Okay. And sure enough, there's a wreck, and I would have probably been in it had I not listened to them. That's happened to me before too. So it can, and those are just examples. There are many different things. And I want the audience to know that this is something that, when you achieve communication with your guides, it shifts your life. It shifts your life like no other. It affects every aspect of your life. Okay. Everything, your relationships, your finances, your job, who you pray to, everything. It shifts everything. Okay. It will shift your perspective on people. There are people, that when I was younger, I would not talk to. And now I have no problem talking to them. Hey guys, how you doing? Hey, what's up, man? You know what I'm saying? But when I was younger, because of my conditioning and where I grew up and what I dealt with, okay, now it shifted everything. And why is it? Because my guides have said, hey, look, and they're pointing these things out to me. So that's my message that I wanted to put forth to the audience. It's a big deal. And I cannot overemphasize the benefits that it will have in your life, just at a personal level. Whether or not you decide to go ahead and do psychic work, metaphysical work, which is funny because people will say, well, I'm not going to do that. But then they go ahead and start talking to their guides and they end up doing it. Okay.
Either professionally or just as a help. Yeah.
Yeah. Either way, it's like, why? It's like, well, I'm just volunteering. Doesn't matter. You're still doing it.
You're still doing it.
Oh, you can be a closet psych.
Like so long, like so many of the people.
Yes.
That they didn't dare come out.
I didn't either. I didn't at first, and I was worried. Some of my friends. I was worried that some of my friends from way back when wouldn't accept it, and some didn't. But you want to know something? I have a good group of friends, and they all accept it. And I have friends from all walks of life, okay? Mm-hmm. And they accept it. They know that about me. I know sometimes ask me, hey, what do you think of this? I tell them, they go, okay, thanks, man.
I know I'm tolerated by some people, but that's okay. They still love me on different levels, but they could do without side stuff. It's
You know,
interesting.
and that,
Right.
and the thing is, and going back to that, you know, because fear about stepping into metaphysics is that, is it going to change my family dynamics and all that?
Yes.
Yes, it will. It will, but it will change it for the better. Okay. And that's hard to say. So what do we, humans are very pliable beings. Okay. So, and when we talk, we always have to talk in in a relative frame of mind. So better for who? Better for you, better for them. Well, it doesn't seem like it. They're mad at me. Well, okay, but are you giving them the opportunity to open their mind? Are you providing them the opportunity to practice love and acceptance? Okay. Or is it you giving them the opportunity for them to really tell you what they think of you? I mean, who knows? You know, it's all there. It's all there. But the thing is at the end of the day, okay, and you know this as well as I do, and that is when you go down this road, the benefits far exceed anything else.
Yeah.
And like I tell them, because once you communicate with your guides, they're there to serve you. They will never, ever steer you wrong.
Or leave you.
They will never leave you, and they will never trick you. They are there with you for your entire incarnation. They are there. They're committed. There's not a more committed relationship that I could think of other than an honest man and an honest union, whether it's man, woman, man, whatever. But you know, there's levels of commitment in that too. But these folks, they're in the game. Okay.
Yep.
And you can't. It is a life shifting thing. And now that I have that in my life, I can't imagine my life without it. You know, if I was to have a fear, it would be disconnected from that, because now that I've seen the role that it's played in my life and how full my life is, and, you know, and having that connection with spirit, I can't imagine not having that. That to me would be bad, you know? And so that's kind of how it works. And so what I tell the audience is, you know, be patient with yourself as you go down this journey of learning who guides are. Okay. Make it a personal relationship, because it is a personal relationship. Okay. And remember, some people have the idea, well, I told them to do this. No, you don't tell them to do anything. We're respectful. They're your assistants. Okay. They're there to assist you. You can request them or ask them, hey, can you help me with this? Be respectful, be kind, just as you want someone to be respectful and kind to you if they were asking you for help. It's a two-way street. But it's a very dynamic relationship. And once you experience it, there is no other. There is no other.
Speaking of relationships, how do people find you?
Oh, they find me? They can find me at I have a business with psychicconsultations.com. I have a website up. I will tell you the website is getting ready to go through some major changes. Okay, I'm going to go to a more improved platform. Okay, they can go ahead and they can reach out to me. My phone number is 512-923-1431. Okay, I have a regular job and I travel a lot for that. Okay, and then I also do psychic work on the side. But the best thing they could do is they could text me. Okay, I tend to work crazy hours on my regular job. However, I usually get back to folks, and as we were able to set something, I do phone readings. And then I also attend the fairs in Austin. That's primarily my two venues that because I travel a lot with my regular job. So that's probably the best ways to get a hold of me is sending me a text message. Okay, 512-923-1431, or you can go ahead and get onto psychicconsultations.com, and there's a link in there or an area where you can go ahead and put your information in and send me a hello, I know you type thing. Okay, and we can communicate that way as well. Or you can call me.
And they can remember too that your bio and this stays up, so they can refer back to. And of course, you can look into Andrew's library and see what he recommends in the way of books, and he's mentioned a particular movie which I never got to see. I have.
You haven't seen The Matrix?
I didn't see The Matrix.
You need to see.
So I have to go see that now.
Yeah, it's a science fiction thing, but I will say this: watch it from the perspective of a metaphysician. That's what you need to do. Watch it from the perspective of a metaphysician, and you'll see a lot of metaphysical undertones to it. It's actually pretty good.
Okay. See, I'm going to have to go see it now. And he'll have that library set up, which he will probably add stuff to over time. And we talked a lot about who he is and why he does it. And Andrew will probably come back for another subject at some point in time. So watch for that. But for today, we're going to wrap it up with a lot of gratitude. And I cannot thank you enough for being with us tonight. Or it happens to be night in Central Texas right now. So thank you so much. We send you to your day job with a lot of safety.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It was great being here. And I look forward to another opportunity. And like I said, if anyone has any particular questions they want us to discuss on this podcast, put them forth.
Please.
And we'll address it because, when you step into metaphysics, literally the world is your oyster. And there are people who've dedicated their whole life to this, to metaphysics. There's so much information. And, there are people who get dedicated their whole life to it, and they barely scratch the surface.
Oh, yeah, it's an ongoing thing. It's an example is I've been reading. I grew up with the tarot, and I have a class, and I look at a card and go, I see now why that is, or I'll see a new symbol or some new line. I've done this for so long, but there's so much more to learn. So much. And are you using a tool?
Yep.
I didn't notice on your table. Are you using cards or anything like that? I don't think you are.
Not right now. Not right now. But when I do readings, I use cards. I use a divination. I can't speak right now. Divination deck is what I use. I use a deck of cards. Is what I use, and then a crystal. That's it.
Not that you need any of it, but just out of curiosity. Well, thank you again for being with us here on Conversation with the Ancients. I appreciate your time. I know the public learned a lot. I did. We had a nice discussion with some questions that I'm glad that you were able to teach me very, very much. That's what I look forward to with my guests, with my conversations. So thank you for being with me tonight. You be safe. It's cold out there. Be warm. Thank you, public, so much for being with us and taking your time to listen to Andrew. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you for tuning into the Conversations with the Ancients, where we take you on a journey where you'll hear voices of metaphysicians from the past, as well as today's spirit mediums, healers, and others who show you a side of the paranormal you've never seen before. Remember to visit our website at conversationswiththeancients.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on Conversations with the Ancients.